Welcome to this episode of Motor City Realists. This is kind of the injury to insult episode. I'm your host, Mike. Got my co-host, Zach. Zach, how you feeling?
Doing well, all things considered. Mike, how you doing?
Yeah, good. Absolutely. Got a good show. Obviously, again, like you said, all things considering, took a big loss there against Seattle, but we want to talk about, obviously, I prefaced it, injury to insult to injury, how you want to say it. Lost the game. Lots of injuries piling up here. We'll see what happens this week. We're going to talk about our abysmal pass rush. Then obviously we're going to get into Atlanta a little bit and then around the league. But Zach, we pushed it back a night. You were going to have a little inclement weather last night, but it seems like it reared its face tonight. So hopefully we make it through. How's the studio holding up?
No, yeah, it's good. Yeah, if you lose me halfway through, it's probably because some lightning struck our internet box or something like that. But
no big deal. But Zach, yes, like you said, a lot different episode, a lot different feel as opposed to last week. Come off the Kansas City win. We talked about Seattle. Wasn't going to be an easy win by any means. Home game, a lot of hype around the game. We both had opportunity to watch it. Before we get into that, anything you want to talk about real quick, because we're going to dive right into the Lions.
No, I'm ready. I'm ready to talk about the Lions and the situation that we're in right now.
The situation that we're in. 2 games in, going to week 3. Zach Mack took the L. Seattle. Obviously, again, like I said, a lot of injuries piling up. CJ Gardner, Johnson, Monty, Josh Pascal from practice. James Houston, obviously from his fibula. Vaitai left knee, Decker still banged up, Amraz banged up, lots of people banged up, and we lost. I know we were going back and forth. We talked about Kansas City opened it up. It was very vanilla. I feel like we opened up some more plays. We saw a lot of the flea flicker, a lot of things to still be excited about. Goff, unfortunately, lost his interception streak. But Zach, takeaways from the game outside the injuries. What was your thoughts while you were going on this roller coaster?
Yeah, just as a broad view, I'm trying to stay optimistic because at this point in the season, I had them at 1-1. It wasn't going to be the way that it happened.
Little flip flop.
Yeah. So I can kind of stay optimistic in that sense, and I believe I mentioned in our very first episode when we were kicking off the season that the Seattle game felt like a trap game, just like it was last year, where we should have won on paper and we didn't. And sure enough, here we go again, losing a shootout to Geno Smith. I was hoping for more out of our defense. Especially with, I think the score predictions that we both gave, I think we had the Lions in the 30s. We didn't have the Seahawks in the 30s. So I would imagine that you would probably agree with me that the defense was a little bit of a letdown in this game. But man, I thought that there was going to be a little bit more grit, seeing as how the Seahawks knocked us out of the playoffs in the last year. Yes. So I was, I mean, just from a broad perspective, I'm just disappointed in the way the defense played in this home opener.
Great mention there, obviously, with Seattle knocking us out last year. Week 2, again, we both had us at 1-1, just a little flip-flop. We had us win in Seattle, losing our opener against Kansas City. So we're still okay with it. But, are you hearing, to me, it's still too early, but are you hearing, Terry Glenn, maybe it's kind of getting warm under his seat with the first 2 games with the way the Lions have played?
For who? I haven't heard this.
So, it's obviously I'm closer to the Detroit news, Detroit media here. You're in Tampa. See that stuff. I kind of laugh at it, because kind of we went through this with Aubrey Pleasant last year, which granted, it flipped the season. That was totally different. I'm not worried about it, but that gets into obviously not to jump too far ahead of ourselves, but the pass rush that we have. Yeah. I mentioned it in Kansas City. With Hutchinson, he wasn't hitting the box sheets. But he had tons of QB pressures. This game, I felt like, there wasn't that much pressure. And it's not like they were gashing us with the run, the whole game. So I was really surprised. And now we're banged up with injuries. I'm not too concerned. Obviously, yes, it's one of those ones that kind of tear your heart out. We posted on social media. I don't know if you saw it. I know you're not on social media, but one of their special teamers that played 10 snaps or something like that, he stole one of the blue face masks and was TikToking or Instagram living in the locker room, dancing around. So that caught a lot of flack, a lot of attention. But I feel like, and I don't want to say this is a rivalry game, but I feel like something's brewing. Yes, we've lost 2, but I think there's a lot behind these games. I think there's a lot of familiar parties on each side. So it'll be interesting to see as this season rolls around what's going to happen. But yeah, a lot going on. But again, injury to insult to injury, however you want to say it. Like I said, I keep saying, again, we talk about the injuries. Gardner Johnson, I think he left for 2 plays, had a little discomfort, and come to find out, I haven't really actually heard if it's a complete tear of his pec. But that's what I've heard.
He is potentially out for season, right?
Yeah, potential season, but I haven't heard exactly. Which I think the kind of forgotten man here is Tracy Walker. Last year tore his Achilles. He was a spark plug for the team. He was a leader. So Gardner Johnson was a big free agent acquisition. Really excited to have him on the team. Tracy Walker's here. So, yes, it's a huge loss, but you kind of forget about Tracy Walker, and he was playing well, kind of keeps the defense intact, keeps branching the nickel. Our pass rush with Pascal being hurt, I know Hutchinson got a little banged up, but it sounds like he'll be okay. Houston obviously going to be out for several weeks. That's not good. There's a lot of ties to different people saying that we should pull the trigger on some trades and stuff like that. We're 2 games in, not time to panic, but we definitely want to see this week with Atlanta, how that's going to work out. But Amra getting banged up. But as we transition from this game, anything you want to talk about this game? I know we're just talking about not a lot to focus on in this game. I feel like we opened up the offense a little bit. We still didn't get the W, but anything you want to focus on before we move on?
No, I think you touched on the lack of pass rush, and I think Campbell touched on it in one of his interviews where I don't know if the Lions just have a tough time with Geno Smith or what, but he's like, you really gotta. He was very specific, like you got to collapse the pocket, right? You come in too tight, he's going to escape out the sides. The flanks are going to be open, and if you try to just QB contain, he's going to run up the middle. And I think for some reason Geno Smith just worries the Lions defense, and so that's just something that I'm going to look for going forward, and hopefully we can fix that. I don't know if it's Geno Smith specific or if it's just any dual threat quarterback, which it didn't seem like we had too many problems with Mahomes. He did, he used his feet a little bit, but and I know Mahomes tries not to run as much as he can just because he is the caliber player he is. But that part of the defense, like you touched on, the pass rush, we got to figure out something there because our secondary is strong. It's just we just can't you can't give them all day to throw,
Absolutely. And again, focused a lot on the injuries. Montgomery being out, it's going to be multiple weeks before he's back. They've said, hey, we're going to take the training wheels off Gibbs. He's obviously going to see more touches. What's your expectations with him? Is he going to be in
Well,
that kind of – what's that?
Well, before we go, because I do want to talk about Gibbs, but before we move on from this game, there's one other thing I wanted to ask you about, and it's the very end in the fourth quarter. I cannot remember exactly how much time is left, but we get the ball in like the 50, and there was some time wasted there. I mean, how do you feel about, from what you can remember, Dan Campbell's clock management at the end of the fourth quarter?
I feel like this has been his thing the past couple of years. You know, I'm not going to give him a pass because he's been in the league for a long time. He's been coaching, but this as an NFL coach, I think in this year you've got to be better with that. There's been some bonehead, kind of questionable the past couple of years. I don't want to necessarily, overset with Kevin right here. Yeah, Geno Smith scares a lot of defense. For those of you guys listening to the podcast version, we're live on YouTube right now. Kevin, a Seattle fan right here. So, I think he needs to really get that under wraps because, he comes off. We've talked about Campbell a lot, like the bra mentality. Happy-go-lucky, but the dude seems like I'm not gonna say he's a genius by any means, but what he's doing in the culture, the buy-in, and those are the kind of things where, he'll hold himself accountable, he'll hold his team accountable, but those are the things where you can't have situations like that. We still had an opportunity, obviously, but yeah, those things gotta go. I mean, you can see that we're kind of at that next level. I'm not saying by any means a Super Bowl team, but you can see we're at that playoff caliber. But to get to those next steps, you can't have those mental. That's exactly what the execution. I mean, he even said it. It came down to execution. We had the fumbles. I mean, even it didn't matter. But at the end of the half, we had that long pass to Amra, and if somehow he broke that tackle, which granted he was getting wrapped up, there was a chance he could have walked in the end zone. I know, but he ended up fumbling the ball. They got it, which ended the half, no big deal. But there was a lot of mental mistakes. Marvin Jones still not getting going. I like to see. Yes.
Yeah. Were you about to talk about Goff?
Well, that's what I was saying. That, and I was watching because I turned away at that time, and I'm like, tell me Goff didn't get a cheap one where it like bounced off a receiver's hands. And then I saw the footage. I was like, wow, man. I said that, for everything that he's done, and that was the interception that kind of took it from him.
Threw it behind it, but that thing was like, I mean, that was heartbreaking for a couple of reasons. One being the streak that he was on, and he was only behind Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. Which, congrats to Jared Goff. Hopefully, he starts another streak. But to be up there with those two guys is huge. So, but just the way, like, fourth quarter, and then they not only an interception, but it's a pick six that puts them up by 2 scores. It was just, it hurts so bad, and I left the bar, right? Because I have to watch these games at bars because I don't have Lions games locally. And it's just down the street, right? So I only missed a little bit, but I was like, as soon as you do that, I was like, I'm going home. Finish the rest of it at home. And it turns out, we get to overtime, but it's just like that fourth quarter where I would like to see a little more aggression. And I understand that, like, Dan Campbell's like, at the very least, let's get a field goal, right? Because we want to get this thing to overtime. And I know you don't want to risk it too much, but if we're going to be one of those teams at the next level, like we keep talking about, like, we got to make some aggressive
well, that's
plays
what's crazy
on there.
The fact that you mentioned that. So in the first quarter, we'll go for it on fourth down almost every time. Fake punt. Then when it comes down to it, it seems like, yeah, okay, we're playing okay for the field goal. We're okay with that.
Yeah.
Granted, if we get down to the 1 yard line, I guarantee he's going for fourth and, go. But I mean,
sure.
Those things, it seems like, yeah, okay, then we rein in the play calling all of a sudden. We take away what's good, that's what aggravates me. That's the only thing I don't understand about Campbell, because how much is he in Ben Johnson's ear, or is it Ben Johnson doing? I don't know. But yeah, that's the weird part to me. But totally off script here, and we don't have this in the show notes. Goff, I talk about it every episode. I'm a Goff guy, and I think you were coming around. At this point, where you're at, seeing where Goff played, granted, he threw an interception, we're 1-1. It's early in the season. Do you do everything you can to wrap this guy up and finish his career in Detroit?
For me, where I stand right now is it depends on what Ben Johnson does. I think he's done a very good job in getting the best out of Jared Goff. And I think Jared Goff runs that offense very well. I just don't, what I get apprehensive about is if Jared Goff's like, because I'm very, very
regime, like a guy coaching.
Yeah, I'm very certain that Ben Johnson's at least going to explore a head coaching job next year. And I just get apprehensive about how Jared Goff's going to do learning a new offense, And
Not
maybe
to say he
maybe
can't, but
great.
if he
Right.
can't flourish in it.
Yeah. Yeah, but this one's tried and true. We know he's good at it. He throws 300 plus without interception. And so I don't know. To answer your question, I don't know that I'm sold on Goff as a Lion forever, but as long as Ben Johnson's here, yes,
There you go. We'll revisit it again. This is week 3. Zach was up and down last year quite a bit on Goff.
But yeah, you got me. You got me on his side now, though. Like I'm a Goff guy in this offense. You got me. I'm there.
All right. We'll transition into the Atlanta game. Atlanta. I was watching NFL Network the other day. And they said, Atlanta's really surprised some teams, and they have. Desmond Ritter's played good. Bijan Robinson. I mean, he looks like a stud running back. Going into this game. I know we picked the very first episode. We picked our wins and losses. Going into this game, what are you looking at? Is this a win? Obviously, we're not getting too far ahead of ourselves. But what's the expectations, defensively, offensively? What are you looking at?
I'm right now. I'm at a coin toss, and this may change tomorrow morning. But right now, I'm at a coin toss because I had preseason when we were making our picks. Right, I think we both had this as a W, but I didn't expect Atlanta to be 2-0. I didn't expect them to look as good. I want to say well polished, almost like for a lot of young guys. I feel like they play as a team fairly well. And again, it's only 2 games, but that's why I'm like, this could go either way. And with these injuries that we're dealing with, I don't know. We're gonna give our predictions, by the time we get to the end of the segment, and by then I'll have a score for you. But right now, it's a coin flip for me. What's your confidence level at?
I think this is one that I had on the schedule. We're gonna win it. Even though they're 2-0, they surprised some people. Even with the injuries in the secondary, I think Tracy Walker will plug in. Kirby Joseph, has played well. Branch, the rest of the secondary. They're not a team that's going to blow the top off your defense. They're not going to throw the real deep ball. Obviously, everything revolves around Bijan, a great running back. It's only his 3rd game where we're talking about the way he's playing. I watched some highlights on him and just the cuts and the moves and jumping around. And it's hard to say. But he's making some cuts and dimes like Barry. He was in the holes hitting them and exploding out of them. So really excited to see that. It'll be interesting to see what our defensive line lines up. But really, what I think it comes down to is our offensive line holding. If Decker's going to be healthy, Vitai's banged up too. We're shuffling, and we talked about last episode. It's okay because this year we have some depth. We've made some difficult decisions, let some players go that probably wouldn't have been passed. So we have that depth, but I just want to see how we're going to line up, and I think this is the game that we fully unload. Our offense hits in stride, and I think this is where we really get going. Gibbs gets out there. I want to keep him healthy. I want to keep him upright because I feel like he's a similar body. I shouldn't say body, but a similar type of Swift, but without the injuries, knock on wood, with his pro style, the way he is. I want to keep him healthy. I'm sure we'll see some Craig Reynolds, but I want to see the touches for Gibbs. I want to see him in the open field. Josh Reynolds had a great game. If we can keep, Amra healthy, I'm sure his ankle's going to be a little banged up. But I'm thinking this is the game that we finally get it going. You saw we kind of opened it up a little bit last week, but I want to see these running backs get going. I want to see this offense open. Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad you mentioned the running backs because I think that's my key to this game is with Montgomery dealing with the injury, and it's that's still day to days. But do you think this is Jahmyr Gibbs? This is his chance to have a coming out. I know he's played a couple weeks now, but here, let's give him the lead back role. Let's make this a Jahmyr Gibbs versus Bijan Robinson game and just see who slugs it out.
Exactly. This is a rookie versus rookie. Your top picks, top rookies in the draft. Let it go. Montgomery's out. I mean, obviously, like you said, it's day to day, but he pretty much said it's going to be a couple weeks. Let these guys go. Let these guys run. Let these guys eat. I think, Bijan, a very similar size. He's a bigger back, but he can catch out of the backfield. He can do a lot of things. So I think there's going to be a lot between those two players. I was lucky. I hit a home run last week on telling everyone to start DeAndre Swift
Yeah,
in
you
the
did.
fantasy league, and I've got Gibbs this week, and I'm definitely riding him and both Bijan. I think those are guys that you really want to ride this week. I'm not necessarily saying Gibbs is going to get the carries that Bijan is going to get, but I definitely think that he's going to impact the box score and he's going to get you some points.
You think Gibbs is over under 5 catches in this game?
Oh, over. I think he's over.
You think so?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think he's going to be in the game more. And I wouldn't say we're going to be down late, but there's always that chance where
Sure.
Montgomery's going to be in the game late, but he's not going to be there for this. So absolutely, I think he's +5 there. So and honestly, you know what? I would love to. I think he's over 100 total purpose yards, so that'll be easy. I would like to see him get close to 100 rushing yards, but definitely 100 total purpose and his first touchdown.
Yeah, I think we have a big chance of this being a coming out for Gibbs. I wouldn't be surprised if he scores on the ground and through the air, 75 each way. But I'm with you 100%. He's over 100 all-purpose yards, and this is for me, especially since now you've got Goff off. We're not paying attention to this interception streak anymore. It's really, to me, this is the Gibbs show. And I hope, I really don't even have any reservations on whether or not he'll play well. I think he will play well. It's just, stay healthy. It's
Absolutely.
turf out there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You saw the turf monster eating a lot of people this week. I saw, what was it today? You had, cornerback out of Diggs from Cowboys tore his ACL. Bakhtiari from Green Bay hasn't been playing on turf, and they're really this is a Zach moment. They're questioning his coach. They were traveling last week, and they said Bakhtiari, if he was at home playing on grass, would he have went? And the coach was like so pissed off at the question. He's like, I'm done answering these questions, because it's kind of like leaving it out there like there is a real chance that they're just only playing him on grass as opposed to turf, which we spoke about last year very heavily in one episode, which we'll have to repost that. Zach was very, very adamant about that. On the difference in the grass versus the turf. And I saw that the NFL released a statement saying that if they changed every field that was turf to grass, it would cost them like $15 million. And I'm like, that's a drop in the bucket for the NFL.
Yeah,
what's it matter? But yes, it's definitely it's been talked about. It'll be continued to talk about. I think that's why I'm on your side. I think that's why these Detroit players, you see some rolled ankles, you see some knees, you see some different things, because you get on turf and they got those little rubber pellets and you just slide on them. It's totally different gripping, totally different. It's different. And these guys are going week to week. I mean, granted, they're practicing on it, and I'm sure they go out to outdoor facilities to practice on grass, but either way. So
that's the thing. Like when you're bouncing back and forth and you're playing on grass this week and then you're playing on turf next week, it's just hard on your foot. Yeah.
And it's funny. I was watching a thing. Kyle Shanahan was talking. They asked him about Thursday night game. Some players are all about it. Some players aren't. They don't like the short week, but on the back end they get it's almost like a bye week, because you get that extra few days. And Shanahan was just pretty much. I was telling. Oh geez. I was watching a show and they were talking about it. I was dying laughing about the whole thing. But they were talking about how. He was talking about like it's a short week. You got to cram everything in 2 days, and just going on about this. And luckily, we haven't had to worry about that a whole lot. But there's a lot to go into play. They say that these big guys, the defensive linemen, these offensive linemen, every play there's collision. Every play there's collision. So it takes until Monday or Tuesday where these guys before they can even walk. Probably Tuesday and Wednesday. And I watched a really, really good. I think it was on Instagram about Calvin Johnson, about his retirement, why he went to retirement, because it was the same thing. His wife, there was a documentary, his wife said by Tuesday, Wednesday, after the game, like he would get out of bed and she could hear him dragging his legs because he couldn't even walk. Like he was so, like his joints and everything. So it just goes to show, what these guys, they're super freaks, best physiques, totally in shape, but that just shows what, 2 trains on tracks are hitting each other. And so it's crazy to think, how it all plays out.
Yeah, and especially with all the signs coming out about the turf and the comparisons playing on turf and grass, it puts the NFL under fire on like do you actually care about these players' health, or is this just a money grab for you? Like, which I understand, like, it's a business, right? So they're making money, it's entertainment, blah blah blah, that. But at the end of the day, like, there is no entertainment if you're not taking care of the players. So I hope, and I really do envision a future where all fields are grass. And I think I even think they hinted at like soccer fields or football fields that double as soccer fields are already going to be grass. So I think it's the future. It's so funny because like when turf came out, it was like turf is the future. Now it's like
I was just gonna say like the future is like backwards. So it's absolutely. But all right, so Zach, before we get out of Atlanta, we got to make our predictions here. I think I put you on the spot last time, so I'm gonna jump in here. I think we both said 30 points last week against Seattle. I think definitely this week I'm saying 35-14. I'm holding Atlanta. I'm hoping our defense comes through. 35-14 Detroit. They open it up. Gibbs has 2 touchdowns.
Okay, I'm gonna go 28-20. I'm gonna give us the win. And you know what? I will agree with you on the Gibbs 2 touchdowns. And I think our defense comes up with a turnover late in the game to seal the victory. We're gonna finish it in victory formation.
Let's get a strip sack or something like that. No?
Yeah,
I mean interception is so much prettier, but at this point we need the strip sack. So, but so we talk about the pass rush being abysmal, so that why not end it on the high note? So right?
Yeah.
All right, Zach. Anything else before we get out of the Atlanta game?
I don't think so. I think we got it covered. We'll just let's go 2-1.
Let's go 2-1. All right, Zach and I. Yes, we get the 2-1 pick after week 3. So, all right, as we get into the rest of the league, Zach, did you have an opportunity to watch around the league, different stats, different things going on in the league last week in week 3?
Sure, yeah. So I was at B-Dubs, and that's basically my NFL Sunday ticket. Yeah. So another double whammy for my Buccaneers: get the hometown win and take down a division opponent. I absolutely loved that. We already talked about the Falcons. They had that 1-point victory over the Packers. So yeah, we are going into an undefeated Falcons team, but at least they kept us even in the division. So some love-hate there.
Speaking of Packers, what week 1 to week 2, here they squeak one out. And I shouldn't say squeak one out. Obviously, they had a good game. Granted, they played the Bears week 1. They looked pretty decent. Week 2, they still should have won it, but they lost to Atlanta. So, Green Bay saying, "Oh, Atlanta's not that good. Atlanta's 2-0." What's your thoughts on that? The division, again, only 2 days, or 2 weeks in. That division's this division's gonna be interesting. I think all season.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to give the Packers too much credit because they did play Chicago week 1, and that's for those that are in my fantasy league. I'm about to give out a secret right now, but that's my defensive strategy. Is I just pick up whoever's playing the Bears. So it's so far
bold strategy, Cotton.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously Vikings 0-2 and got a feel for Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson because they probably shouldn't be. They're not an 0-2 team. But yeah, we're still, by my calculations, still tied for the top of the division. So,
and Kirk Cousins is the number 1 fantasy quarterback in the NFL right now.
Is he really?
Yeah, absolutely. He just slowly just flies.
I did not know that.
I love it.
Did you know that I heard today? Did you know Daniel Jones has the most rushing yards of any quarterback?
I wouldn't be surprised, but he's also got the worst record in primetime games they were talking about. So outside of him and Kirk Cousins, speaking of which, but anything else around the league that you took note of? Anything big going on last week? What about the Browns? Chubb, did you see the injury?
Oh, gruesome.
And this is the same knee. The second time they had the side-by-side pictures, which you don't want to see that stuff get leaked, but the day and age of social media and everything, it's going to get out. That they didn't replay it on TV, obviously, rightfully so. But I've heard different things, but I haven't heard them come out and say. But injuries like that can tear vessels. Can be career ending, not just season. Obviously, they go out. Jerome Ford ended up finishing the game strong. We knew Kareem Hunt was going to be in the sights there. With that, that's a huge break for that team. I feel like that team's up and down. Week 1 they beat Cincinnati. with Pittsburgh coming to town. Both divisional games, that's another division that I think is wide open because although, Jackson for Baltimore, in Dobbins being hurt, I don't think they've played really up to standard, although he had a great game last week. I think that division is going to be wild this year. I feel like just like the NFC North, like us. I mean, watching that game, did you see it live or was it just a replay?
I saw a replay of it, and that stuff, like when stuff bends the wrong way, like that just makes me cringe.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you feel for the guy. He was in good spirits. Huge blow to that team having Deshaun Watson back for the full season, kind of getting that team going. But yeah, that's big. A lot of injuries. Anthony Richardson for the Colts with a concussion. I saw Bryce Young was declared he's not going to play this week. Andy Dalton's going to play for the Panthers this week. So what's your take? I think we talked a little bit last year on Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. When these stud college players, and I look at them and they're not like, it's not like I'm standing next to them, but they're not like big guys. They're skinny. I'm sure they hit the weight room, but when these guys transition from college to the NFL, I feel like some of these guys just can't take the lumps. I mean, and I shouldn't say it like that, but there's not many Matt Staffords. There's not many Iron Men anymore. Which granted, when Stafford came out, the first few seasons he had some injuries. Then he's played out of his mind. He hasn't had any injuries. But these guys that just light it up in college, they get it, in the NFL, and it's like what they're doing. They're told, hey, you need to slide. You need to, and then it's like they take a few hits, and it's like they really need to learn. Like, what's your take on these guys as they come into the NFL? It's like, do they feel like they're unstoppable because they were just so good in college?
Yeah, I agree with you because they look small out there compared to other NFL men, but I mean, for those two guys specifically, I think they're going to be a little bit more long-term anyway. I think if you give them a couple years, 2-3 years, and let's see how much muscle they can put on. Yeah. As they become, because really, I mean, if you think about it, they just came out of college, right? So they're basically kids. And they're with all these grown men, and they're eventually going to grow into being these grown men. But and this whole topic, because I'm glad you touched on it, because I have so many thoughts on it, and honestly, it deserves probably its own episode. But this, especially like CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, when you're playing for Alabama and you're playing for Ohio State, and the NCAA was so, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but it's so top heavy where you have so much talent on those teams and you're playing these, for lack of a better word, scrub teams on your schedule. You tend to stand out. And so the direction that I like that the NCAA is going is this whole transfer portal thing. And I think it creates more parity. And we already see it. Like Alabama is not the powerhouse that Alabama was in the last couple of years. And this, I think, is going to help players transition to the NFL because they're going to be playing more good teams, because not all of the talent is on Alabama or Georgia or Ohio State or Michigan or whatever. And the more it gets spread out, I mean, we see what Deion Sanders is doing in Colorado. Then the more teams you have in the mix, the more you get used to facing potential NFL caliber rather than NFL caliber only being on your team. You know what I mean?
See, I absolutely hate the transfer portal, but the comment you make, it does. I wouldn't say it waters down the league, but it's more so fair and consistent. And I wouldn't say fair and consistent because you're going to still have your Power 5 recruiting top level talent. But I mean, you get these guys that are 5 stars that aren't going to sniff the or not sniff the field. I mean, look at Joe Burrow. Never did anything with Ohio State. He was a stud. I don't think I think he's a 4-star. Either way, goes on to LSU. I mean, kind of what you would expect. But I mean, that's what's going to happen. These guys, Quinn Ewers, are going to transfer out. They're going to go to a team, and they're immediately going to be starters. So they're going to put relevant. I mean, look at what Texas is doing. Like you said, Alabama. You hate to root against the team, but that's one team that it doesn't really hurt a whole lot to root against. But
it doesn't hurt. But
I mean, how can you not? You don't have to jump on the bandwagon, but how can you not peak what Colorado's doing? How can you not, when they're on TV,
right,
change the channel when it's on? And Deion, love him or hate him, there's a lot that goes behind him, a lot of flashy, a lot of things going on, but he also is very respectful. There's things that maybe it's a different situation. Maybe if he's losing, it's a totally different thing. But the things that he comes out and says after coaches, after players, that hit on Travis Hunter that put him out of the game from that safety or the linebacker, whoever it was, the guy was getting death threats for Colorado State.
Yeah.
And Deion just said, you got to realize he's a young man. He's got the rest of his life in front of him. And this is what we're worried about. And we're talking about, to go along with that, in fantasy, it gets bigger and bigger. These players that are playing, granted, they're making millions and millions of dollars, but if they don't do well for your fantasy team, people are like, never in a million years would I get on social media or email or pen and paper and send something to a player and say, you know what, if you don't do this for me, I'm going to kill you. Like,
yeah, what does your life come to?
And not to get too far away, what the world has come to, but I don't even know what this might go down a rabbit hole at this point, but I mean, we're talking about the good in college football, the transfer portal I'm on the fence for. I don't like that kids can necessarily just say, okay, I'm not going to be the best one, so I need to transfer out. But on the flip side, it also gives more of an even playing field because it seems like these kids are transferring to schools that are borderline relevant, and they're going in and making these teams relevant again. You're going to see Texas, you're going to see Florida State, these teams that have always been big teams, but probably fallen off as late. So you see Alabama, Clemson down this year. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens. But yes, great take there, great point. But anything else from around the league that you want to touch on?
I mean, I do want to touch because he's my fantasy quarterback. Josh Allen had a much better week this week than he did in week 1. Joe Burrow is still 0-2. But the big one that I want to talk about is Pat Mahomes, who we obviously took him down in week 1. They come back. Kelsey's back. They get Chris Jones, which he's not on offense, and I'm going to touch on the offense. They still only score 17 points. And luckily, I shouldn't say luckily, but they squeak out a win against Jacksonville because Jacksonville played like garbage. And Trevor Lawrence said it. He said they threw away an opportunity because Jacksonville could have won that game very easily. And I don't know what is up with Kansas City. And so I'm going to kind of put you on the spot. And you probably don't even follow Kansas City at all. But what are your thoughts? They get those two guys back. They still only win an 8-point game against the Jaguars. Is it?
I think it's like anything. The NFL is when something new or something great happens, it usually takes a year and a half, maybe 2 years to figure it out. I'm not saying they figured out Pat Mahomes, but Tyreek Hill, that when he lost last year, when they lost him, that was a huge loss. Well, Pat Mahomes still got it going. Well, now they don't have him 2 years removed. Sky Moore is their number one receiver. They got Kadarius Toney, who's got bricks for hands. They've got this rookie also that drops everything. I don't think this team is doing him any favors where he's still doing what he needs to do, but you don't have those guys around him that are going to stretch the field. Sky Moore can take the top off the defense, but he's the only guy that is probably consistent. Kelsey's coming back, so obviously he gets his touchdown. He's going to move that offense, but I mean their running game really hasn't gotten going. They've had some injuries on defense. Nick Bolton went out last week. Chris Jones did get a sack, but I think this is, I wouldn't say a copycat league. I mean, it is, but this has nothing to do with that as far as that. I just think the weapons, they're all the focus on Pat Mahomes now. Now you can put all your focus on Pat Mahomes as opposed to the rest of the offense outside of Kelsey. You had a banged up Kelsey. Were they game plan for Kelsey? No, probably not. They gave him one. So I think once they get going, but I really think the struggles all season. I don't think this is going to be by any means maybe a playoff team. I mean they'll make the playoffs, but I don't think they're going to make a deep run. I think it's really kind of over for them because unless they make a in-season trade for a wide receiver, because I just think that's what they're missing, and it really really hurts that offense.
Yeah, not really a no-brainer Super Bowl pick like they used to be. And I got to throw a little shade at the Jaguars because the Dolphins also won. They beat the Patriots by 7. So that was the first Florida loss of the year. Florida teams are 5-1 now.
I feel like the Dolphins are like, I don't like the Dolphins, but they're exciting to watch, and I want to watch them. Yeah. Like there's 4 guys on that team that have like 4.2 speed, and it's like unbelievable. And I can't, like, their coach, I think he's the biggest dork in the world, and I just can't like look at him and be like, this dude is like the real. He's like, I think I mentioned this last year. He's like, if like you're the son of a multi-billion-dollar CEO, and the CEO goes out of town and he gives the keys to his son to run the business.
Yeah.
Like he's that guy that's just like he shouldn't be there, but somehow he does it.
Yeah, he's like an AI human that went wrong, and they just like they put him on the street anyway. They're like, do your best, you know.
Like I don't know who saw it if you watched it, but they interviewed him at halftime as he's walking off the field, and like the cameras, like the drones, and like they're all in, and he's like talking, and all of a sudden they like ask him a question, he answers it, and he like starts walking away, and you see the cameras like zooming, and he like looks behind him, like looks over his shoulder, and just sprints off the field as he's like looking over his shoulder, he's like daring the camera to follow him, like I'm gonna post on Twitter. I'm sure everybody's seen it, but it's just it's worth every penny. Like this dude like is wild.
Yeah, wires in his brain that just like aren't connected right, but they're not wrong enough. Yeah, to where he's like an idiot, you know. But yeah, this couple shout outs here. Tua has won 5 straight starts against the Patriots, which is the most for any quarterback in the Belichick era. And I also don't know if you saw this, but this guy, I've never heard his name said. Puka Nacua. Is that right?
Oh yes, for St. Louis. Or excuse me, not
St. Louis. Wow.
I'm throwing myself way back there. Greatest show on turf.
Yeah,
Matt Stafford makes anybody good, right?
Yeah. I was gonna say, in the absence of Cooper Kupp, you know that's what happens, and he broke the record for the most receptions through the first 2 games for a rookie, 20 catches. He had 15 at week 2. That's crazy.
A lot of bromance here for Stafford. I think I'm gonna get the Stafford jersey out for next week. So
yeah, I mean, shit, I'm about to walk on to whatever team Stafford's play. Throw me 20 targets a game. I'll catch a couple of them.
All right, Zach. Before we get out of here, anything else going around sports? Anything in general you want to touch on? We talked about Mel Tucker a little bit last week. Obviously, they've come out and made that change. What anything going on in the rest of the world you want to touch on?
No, I'll take my roundtable to talk about a little bit of soccer. Champions League just started, so I'll admit that I'm watching that. That's some good stuff. I finally selected a team, and people could slaughter me over this all they want, but I'm going Manchester United. They're going to be my. I think they're the Red Devils. See, I'm so new, I don't even know what their mascot is.
What a bold pick for you, Manchester.
Yeah, right.
Right. That AC Milan, something like that. So. Anyways, so
that's all I got.
All right, there we go. I don't really have anything either. I'm glad we went around the league. We talked a lot of injury. I feel like the injury bug definitely hit the league this week. Hate to see it. Definitely looking to get that W for Atlanta against Atlanta. I'm sorry. So looking to come out of this episode, 2-1. What you say?
And yeah. So that's what we'll be back here next week. That's what we're looking at. Couple things that we're looking at before we go. We're looking at Jahmyr Gibbs and how he plays. We're looking at how we step up in the wake of these injuries and how we look based off of all that. And we also have to give a shout out to our producer who we completely missed last week, Rebecca. She does wonderful work.
Awesome work. Appreciate her on the 1s and 2s.
Yeah, so let's go 2-1.
So let's go 2-1. Absolutely. So for Rebecca, we'll take it for Rebecca. But anyways, appreciate you guys joining us. Episode 3 MCR Motor City Relay is presented by Belly Up Media. We will see you guys all next week. I am Mike, co-host Zach Mack. We appreciate you guys being